this project. For my dissertation, I'm working on a history of the workers who worked for the Paraguayan state in the 19th century. And that is because this was a state that was quite powerful in economic terms for the time, and which employed tens of thousands of workers, free and unfree, under different regimes. And so for the public history project that we are working on this semester, I'm working on a topic that comes out of that dissertation research, as well as research by other scholars, which are the industries that the Paraguayan state developed in the 19th century. So the Paraguayan state developed one of Latin America's first railways, iron foundry, as well as an important arsenal and shipyard. And these are milestones in Latin America's economic and political history. And I want to bring to public attention the fact that these projects were based on an extensive use of labor coercion. So the format that I have chosen is a written article for a broad audience. What I'm thinking about is it's not exactly an opinion piece in the way that Adrienne sort of taught us how to think about in the workshop that we had with her, mainly because I'm not sure that I would have clear lessons to share that could apply to a very immediate present concern. I'm thinking more, even though her advice has stuck with me, and keep scanning the news to think about ways in which we can introduce a historic discussion to the public conversation. I'm thinking more about an article that bridges history with the ways in which that history is politically mobilized in the present, both in Paraguay and elsewhere in Latin America. And so I have a specific magazine in mind for this, which, as we're recording, maybe I will not mention, but it's a US-based magazine that specializes in research and analysis on Latin America. So that's important because that's kind of the audience of people who already read a lot about Latin America. It publishes historical pieces of the kind that I'm thinking about that connect kind of like history and memory. And the extension for the pieces is usually around 1,500 words. And they have an open call for pitches in their website. And so I should mention that by sort of beyond discussing the specific history of the Paraguayan industries in the 19th century, my broader goal is to promote discussions about Paraguay in forums that are about Latin America more generally. And that is because, well, it's seldom mentioned in these kind of publications. And I think it's important to develop sort of a way of historic thinking within and outside academia that is less about like Latin America's key players, and that's more attentive to sort of its peripheral areas. So yeah, okay. So when I say that I will engage in a conversation with these prevailing images of Paraguay, especially those circulating in progressive circles, these are some examples of what I'm thinking about. So this book is the Latin American bestseller in nonfiction. It has over 100 official editions and many pirated ones. It's been read by millions of people, literally. And this book describes Paraguay as Latin America's most progressive country, as the only country that foreign capital had not reformed, thanks to this autarkic internal development policy, you know, a Latin American exemption, and so on. And there are many echoes of this way of thinking in the present. So what I was just mentioning in the pitch, this is Argentine Vice President and current Vice President and former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, who has referred to Paraguay as the first industrial country of the region, which had the first iron foundries, the first railroads, the first factories. This kind of speech circulates widely among sort of progressive circles, within progressive circles to this day. So our different workshops, and especially the one on digital resources and Thai suggestions, have led me to think about the images that could be used for such an article. The magazine that I'm thinking about usually includes 1 or 2 photos per article, no more than that. So these are possibilities, images that I could probably get rights to very easily. This is a museum in downtown Asunción that stands in the site of the first old railway station. I would actually like to take a different photo myself, because this is kind of an artificially beautiful take. Actually, to these days, it's a lot more run down. And its gallery, it's sort of the home of a lot of unhoused individuals. So I think that capturing that image gives a better sense of the overall Paraguayan story. And this is an engraving of the Iron Foundry that I think is one of the few, if not the only, historic image that we have from that. And then finally, I wanted to show you what would constitute, the basis, the meat of the article, which I think would be a few very well selected sources, primary and secondary. I would like to include at least one individual story from the archives. In this case, I was thinking about father and son Nicolás and Gregorio Tinde, who were caught stealing horses and then were sent to work in shackles in the iron foundry. And then Gregorio tried to flee the foundry, and he was caught, and he was treated as a military deserter. That means that he was executed in 1850. So I think that stories like this clearly, put into question the celebration of these industries by so many, people coming from the left, and tell us that, this project of national sovereignty and autonomy was, built on the basis of enormous violence. And then I've also been thinking about the importance of citing, important scholars, other scholars who have worked on this, and particularly scholars who have not published in English and that, are usually invisibilized in the Anglophone world. So the magazine that I'm thinking about favors these kinds of citations in the way that journalists cite their sources, kind of similar style. And in this case, I want to make sure to cite Milda Rivarola, who's a Paraguayan historian who has produced great work on this topic and who really has been the one who has advanced many of the ideas that I'm sharing with you now, but whose work is not accessible for English speaking readers. So we'll stop sharing now. Oh, stop. So yeah, that's my project. Thank you for listening.